My number one movie that shaped my relationship with my grandparents is Miracle on 34th Street from 1947, directed by George Seaton, starring Edmund Gwenn, Maureen O'Hara, John Payne, and a very little Natalie Wood. Quick logline: after a divorced New York mother hires a nice old man to play Santa Claus at Macy's, she is startled by his charm to be the genuine article. When his sanity is questioned, a lawyer defends him in court by arguing that he is not mistaken. So it's sort of weird to say that I sort of see, my mom's dad, my grandfather
Uh-huh.
in Santa as played at least in this movie.
Yeah.
It's not so much the Santa-ness of it, but more about what Santa, and I should say Edmund Gwynn, stands for in this
Hmm.
movie, which is just doing the right thing, giving people a chance, being kind and adoring towards everybody, but also being firm
Hmm.
and also being quirky, in his own right. Like when I never forget through the course of the movie, there's a psychologist, a quack psychologist, really, at
Right.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
company
Yeah.
who the authorities of the company sort of put in charge to talk to Edmund Gwynn's character and see if he's sane or no. And when he's getting on his nerves, Edmund Gwynn basically kind of lightly punches him with his umbrella,
Yeah.
which is such a amazing moment. And I think it's critical, obviously, to the plot of the movie, but it's, I think, also critical to the character, that this is not once again, your flawless, pristine, grandfatherly character who's just
Hmm.
cuddly and nice and sweet and kind, but has something to say and will stand up for himself and show somebody who's being annoying and irritating, arguably maybe not in the most grown-up way, but show him what needs to be shown.
Yeah.
So I love that about the character, and it's something that I always saw in my grandfather as well, who was mostly the wise, silent, adoring kind of person. But every once in a while, when someone did something stupid, he did not hold back to kind of, you know, call it out that this is just totally dumb. It shouldn't be done this way. But yeah, before I go any further, had you watched this movie before? And if so, what did you think of it?
Yeah, this is a movie I think is a holiday classic. I've
Yep.
seen and this a lot, and actually the remake that was made in the '90s, I also see
Hmm.
a lot too, and I think is actually a really solid remake and another version of this story that I think works just as well. But this was the first one, so this is the instant classic. I think it's one of the best holiday slash Christmas movies there is out there, and a lot of it is due to that performance as Kris Kringle that he gives. And it's funny you mentioned that moment with the broom. Like for me, it was funny on this rewatch was the first time you see him as Santa, Kris Kringle. He's like walking around the street at the holidays in New York and just like complaining about everything that's wrong. He's like, oh, that's the
Right.
wrong reindeer. This guy's drunk. Just some cantankerous sort of annoying old man. I'm like, geez, I don't remember him coming across like so. Yeah, it's kind of like cantankerous and but that hey that's part of being old. Sometimes you're just sort of yelling at things and being like, oh, this is shameful, shameful. He keeps saying, I'm like, damn,
Right.
dude, calm down. Like,
Right.
don't give this guy a hard time. He's probably a working actor who this is the only gig he's got. Yeah, maybe he's a little drunk, but like I just thought that was really funny. But I think that does make this character, I think, more true to life and real. He's not some perfect idealized, oh, Santa Claus, ho ho ho, like, oh, like I'm the Coke commercials. Like, no, he seems like a real guy, but then also seems like authentically like what you would imagine Kris Kringle would be, if there was a Santa Claus, what he would be like. I think it's one of the best performances of the Santa Claus character in a film.
Hmm.
He does such a great job.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And I agree. This is one of the best holiday movies there is.
Yeah.
There's a thin line between get off my lawn, crotchety old person versus, yeah, this person has seen a lot of life
Right.
and some standards need to be upheld. And
Mm-hmm.
there are practical matters like the Macy's Day Parade is for children. And if your Santa is like totally drunk, what could be the consequences of that?
Right. Right.
And some traditions have to be upheld. So, there's like a very thin line between these items. And as I get older, I always try and sort of look at that. Like it's no longer just that, oh, you're just being an annoying old person. I want to try to sort of get at the heart of it and sort of see, and especially when it's being performed by an actor like Edmund Gwenn, like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want to lean in and listen, I
Hmm.
think. Like, why? What is going on over there? We haven't mentioned Natalie Wood fully. That's
Oh,
the
she's so
other
good in this.
kind of amazing pillar of this movie, that the interaction between the two of them is incredible. And once again, like, I love, we've had this theme now in a few of our movies, like Heidi as well, which is that it's not this taken for granted relationship between a child and a grandparent. Oh, just because we
Hmm.
are family or whatever, although in this case they're not family, so there's not that at play.
Sure, sure,
But
sure. Right,
oh, I just love you and like you just because you're sweet, adorable, and you care for me.
right.
It's a very sort of adult relationship that starts with a little bit of curiosity and intrigue and maybe even dismissal,
Hmm.
but then sort of grows fondly from there. And what I love about Edmund Gwynn's character in that relationship is that, like, is my experience with my grandparents, that they always talk to me as if I was an adult. I was
Hmm.
never sort
Right.
of,
Yes.
pushy pushy to that, oh, little blah blah blah. I mean, there were
Me too.
moments of
Yeah.
that,
Uh-huh.
but we sat down with my grandfather and talked about things, serious, funny, whatever, but we were
Hmm.
never talked down to. And this is how he is in the movie. Like, he really sees her, he meets her where she's at, and she's also wiser than her years, which
Yeah.
is sort of a key plot point of the movie. So yeah, I just think that's just so beautifully done.
No, she's great. And we were talking about, iconic movie moments. And I
Yeah.
definitely, that scene where she tugs on his beard and just that whole interaction is, that is in a lot of montages for holiday films. And I think that is her, just such a great performance, especially in that scene. I also liked this film because it really touches a lot on themes that are still relevant today, just with Christmas and, the over commercialization of it. And to be talking about this in 1947 as a major thread in this plot is just very still relevant today, where this is still something that even in modern Christmas movies, there is this theme of like, oh, just trying to make a dollar. Even Elf, which is a modern Christmas classic, his
Right.
the Jimmy Kahn character is basically just trying to make money off of the holiday, but doesn't actually care about it in any meaningful way. And that's where the head capitalist at the store, the Macy's, is like, oh yeah, we'll make, if we look like we're putting profits or putting like care above profits, we'll make more money. So
Right.
I like that line. It's like, oh, we'll make it look like we're sending people to other stores if they don't, or we will do that because it'll make us look good, so we'll make more money. So it also still just comes back to money in the end. And the Santa Claus character, Chris Kringle, in this film is against that. It's like, no, it should be about what makes the child happy, not what makes Macy's a buck. I think that's even a line
Right.
that he says in the film. And that to me is what, is the heart of what Christmas is about. Not to make it about
Yeah.
the holidays now, but I think this movie just is great in how it weaves that into the plot, but doesn't hit you over the head with it. It's just kind of there. It's not like the capitalists or the villains or anything per se, but becomes more about this trial. But I still think that is a relevant theme that just works really well in this film.
I totally agree. And I think closely juxtaposed with that theme is another theme of sort of modernity, our belief in what's real and what's not real,
Yes,
and
yes.
versus, tradition and just sort of good home values.
Hmm.
And you can disagree with them, but and I think that push and pull is very relevant today, will always be, there'll
Hmm.
always be new things, there'll be new innovations and developments that'll make us look at life and each other in a different way, and it'll give us the power to question things, which is obviously a good thing. But in the process of doing that, how willing are we to forget simple things, or in my view the more important things of just love and belief in
Right.
something.
Hmm.
If you question everything, then what are you even for? What are you living for? And I think the movie makes a very good case, literally through the case. Like, the court case is, if you look at it
Yeah.
in an intellectual way, it's just totally bizarre and silly and doesn't make sense. But I guess that's not the point. The point is that, what do you believe in? How do you show up? And that's sort of that. Essentially, you can still
Right.
be critical and intellectual about things, and there's place for that, but there's, I guess, more to life than that, is sort of what the movie is saying.
Right. I mean, the whole point of having a belief is that you can't prove it or not. You just believe it. Like, that's sort of
Right.
the point of it. And I think you need to have things like that in your life. Not everything can be proven. There has to be things you just believe in that are
Right.
unproven, and no one ever can ever prove it. And I think that's what the message of this movie is, to your point too, when there's the trial scene of trying to essentially prove that he's Santa Claus or not. is what the trial is trying to do. And I think the movie does good job of showing that there's an importance in belief, even though the very, very end of the movie, at the movie sort of saying, yeah, he is actually Santa Claus, because they get the house that, he promised Natalie Wood's character. So I guess the movie is saying Santa Claus is real. But what I like in the film is that throughout it, you don't really know whether he's real or not, but then it doesn't really matter. It is about just that belief. It doesn't matter whether this movie is saying, oh, Kris Kringle is Santa is real. It's just about having it's the power of belief and the importance of that. Even though at the end they try to kind of have their cake and eat it too, and say, he was Santa Claus, so it is proven. But I think this movie is just it's just fantastic. It's great film.
I couldn't agree more. And yeah, he sells it, right? Like, to your point, you don't know if he's it or no, but you kind of believe it because he is so great in this role. Oscar winning, by the way, for this role.
Yeah, he's just so good. But yeah, you're right. Like, as an audience member,
you believe it.
You're like, yeah, I actually believe this guy probably is Santa, even though there isn't really any evidence other than his performance in the film until the very end, when again they try to show that he is real. But I think that just, again, the power of his performance and what this movie can do.
I totally agree. And if I could say one more thing, which is that it's always a good reminder to me, because I saw this with my own grandparents, that like in this movie, you can sort of ignore Kris Kringle as the old guy or the guy who's finding the faults of what's not right with the world. But if you actually take a little notice and hear him out or sit with them and talk to them, you'll see just so much more wealth of information, wealth of knowledge. I don't know, maybe this is just how I grew up. I was kind of the opposite of you were. I didn't want to hang out with the young kids. I wanted to go and sit with these folks and listen to their stories, because I just found them more interesting always, because the kids of mine were just like running around breaking things, and I was like, you guys are all dumb. I don't
hey, that's what being a kid's about, running around and breaking things. Yeah.
I was a weird child, clearly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a good reminder, like, do not, if you see an old person sitting on the bus or whatever, like, don't just totally ignore them or look down upon them, because they might have a lot to offer.
They might be Santa Claus. You never know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.